As the 20th century was about to begin, around the year 1900, there was such optimism with science and with technology. It was just going to be a fabulous 20th century. And then the sinking of the Titanic. And then this terrible World War, we call it World War I. The technology had developed in the weapons, and millions were slaughtered. And we had President Woodrow Wilson. We entered the war, and he had hoped for the League of Nations. Never came about with us. And 100 years ago today, the great armistice, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, November the 11th, at 11 o'clock, the armistice came about. And we want to remember 100 years ago, they had hoped it would be the war that would end all wars, but from it came the seeds of World War II and all the terrible things that have happened in the 20th century, although great things as well, but it was a very bloody century. So we do salute and honor and pray for all veterans living and deceased, and truly may we have the war that ends all war. May the next generation never have to fight. That's my prayer for all of you. You know, the scriptures here, the two little widows, the widow in the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, she gave her last bit of food to the prophet, and then the little widow at the temple gave her 2 cents to the treasury. You remember the parable that Jesus told about the fellow who had an abundant harvest? It was a huge harvest. And he said to himself, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this produce. My barns are too small. I'll build bigger barns and store all my produce, and I'll be well off for years to come. Eat, drink, and be merry. And then God said, you fool. Tonight your soul will be required of you, and to whom will all your stored up wealth go? So he put his security in his possessions. And these two little widows, just the opposite. They gave away their security. A little bit of food and 2 pennies, 2 cents. Pennies. I still pick up a penny. Do you pick up a penny when you see it? I always pick up a penny. Even if it's in a mud puddle, I'll pick it up. Our friends to the north, in Canada, they've done away with pennies. Did you know that? I guess it costs more to produce a penny than it's worth. And so in Canada, they simply round it off to the next number. And but pennies, she gave 2 cents. Here, have a penny. Mia, have a penny. Go ahead, have a penny. Hannah, you want a penny? Here you go. All right, now take a look at this penny. Abe Lincoln is on this penny. Okay, Joshua, here's a penny for you. Nate, have a penny. Okay. I think if we can grasp, this gospel is not talking about how much money we contribute to the church or to charity. That's not what it's all about. This gospel is about where we place our security, where we place our confidence, where we place our trust. And I imagine if we saw this little woman with 2 cents, we would say to her, no, please, keep your 2 cents, and we'll take you to the coat rack, we'll get you some clothing. Here's a card, you can go to the grocery store and get some food. And we would try to prevent her from giving away her 2 cents. But I think Jesus saw this, and it was such an overwhelming act of love by this little widow that he couldn't interrupt it. He just stopped and watched this marvelous act of trust in God. Look at the penny. Look above Abraham Lincoln's head. Can you read it? It's really tiny. Can you read what's there? Can you tell me what it says? In God we trust. It's right in the money. Now, maybe this is intuitive wisdom, but it's telling us, do not put your trust in money. It will fail us. It will fail us. And I understand. I understand. I get it. When I went to Providence College, the tuition was $1,000. And I could earn it myself in the summer at the golf course. I earned it myself. How much is it now? Can you tell me, how much is it to go to Stonehill? All right, so Danielle Cartier, it's $50,000 to go to Stonehill. So I imagine St. Anselm and Providence College are all up there. I get it that you parents and grandparents, what you people, you're trying to provide for the education of your children and your grandchildren. And I understand that. This gospel is not about giving away your last penny at all. It's about where we put our trust. And there it is, right above Abe Lincoln. In God we trust. Because ultimately, material things will fail us. They will fail us. Only putting our trust in God. Now, the Gospels are so rich. They really are so rich. And when Mark is writing, Jesus sees this little widow giving away all that she has. And Jesus is on his way to Calvary. He's not only going to give away all that he has, he's going to give away his entire life. He's going to die. He's going to die on the cross, and he, in his human nature, had to trust his Father to raise him up. He had to put his trust in God that as he died on that cross, his Father would raise him up. This whole concept of giving our lives away to God, to put our trust, total trust in God. This is called the paten. And you see it at the offertory of the Mass, when we're offering the bread and the wine, when in fact the risen Christ present here is making present his offering of himself to his Father. That's the offertory. And this is not original with me, but it's Catholic wisdom. It's Catholic wisdom. When you're at the offertory of the Mass, put all your joys on the paten, put all your sorrows on the paten, and offer them to God. Put your whole life on the paten. Offer yourself to God as Jesus did on the cross. Say, Lord, I'm going to put my life in your hands. Do with it as you will. Work in me and through me for the good of your kingdom and for your glory. I'm offering my life to you. Put it on the paten. Put it on the paten. That's what it's all about, folks, that our trust can only be in God alone. Everything else is passing away. Only that relationship with God is eternal. So put it on the paten.